Hello, 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 YouTubers. This is Florita TV blogger. Hope you guys are having an amazing day today. Today I'm going to be discussing what happened, reaction from Olivia's podcast that she did this morning that came out. It's called, I believe, Whoa, It's Ryan. I think you can listen to it on YouTube as well, and also as other platforms that you can listen to other podcasts and things that's available. And Olivia had spent the time, discussing what happened with Korey and their breakup and everything else. And I just wanted to say, number one, the cover-up is always worse than the crime. Number two, I knew there was going to be more updates, as I stated in previous videos, because it was the way the information was filtrating and trickling down. We were never getting the full story in a one-shot from the different islanders, including Korey and Olivia. And this podcast actually makes me feel a certain kind of way about most of the islanders, because it feels like we're being deceived as fans, and I'll explain why. So it's kind of confusing, but it sounds as though at some point after the show, Olivia friend-zoned Korey, and he was under the impression that they broke up, and he took it hard, and as a result of that, he hooked up with Florita in some capacity when he went to Miami. Again, the definition of hooking up, we don't know if it was just a kiss or if something more happened, because nobody seems to want to tell the actual truth of what actually took place, other than it was inappropriate enough for several members of the cast to keep it a secret from Olivia and not reveal to her, that this particular situation took place, and lied to her and just made it seem like they just had a good time in Miami and just did some partying and that was it. So fast forward to Halloween. If you'll remember, the cast was in Arizona, which is Olivia's home stopping grounds. And so Korey stayed with Olivia at her place versus staying at the Airbnb where the cast was. So Olivia was under the impression at this point that things were back on track with the two of them, that they were back together, because Korey was still doing the same thing as before. He was FaceTiming her every day, and they were still having the same type of interactions that they had when they were in the relationship. Fast forward to Friendsgiving, which was in Atlantic City a few weeks ago before Thanksgiving, and this is when Charlie and other cast members started to notice that the body language between Korey and Olivia was a lot different, was a lot more intimate, and was something went down, and that Korey was basically very distant with Olivia in Atlantic City. And so she didn't think anything of it at first, because she thought that maybe Korey was just getting drunk or getting wasted and passing out, because there was multiple Airbnbs for the Atlantic City event. And she just didn't think anything of it. And so what ended up happening was somehow Charlie and Trina found out what happened. Charlie tells Olivia in Atlantic City, that something went down between Korey and Florita, and that there was something inappropriate about their interactions. And then after that, tried to make a pass at her and tried to kiss her, and Olivia rejected him. And so still at this point, Olivia's being lied to by Florita and Korey, that they're telling her that nothing happened in Miami, but in reality, something did happen. And then this is where, if you'll recall, the s'more date interview that Olivia did last week, where she is expressing that Trina and Charlie were the ones to, really tell her that something happened, and what actually happened that they had heard that went down between Florita and Korey. And that was when she had put them on a three-way call to confirm things. And Olivia is saying in this podcast now that essentially Korey called her on FaceTime after Friendsgiving in Atlantic City, and then finally fessed up in the 11th hour that something did go down between him and Florita, which ultimately led to the breakup post that we saw Korey just, go ahead and do, while Olivia was on FaceTime with another islander and was blindsided by that post. So there are several things to unpack. As far as why there's so much bad communication in this cast, number one. Number two, it is very clear that this cast does not like each other no matter what they say. It seems as though they want to keep up this appearance that everybody is cool with each other, but it seems that they hold Florita on a higher pedestal than they do Olivia, the season 3 winner of Love Island with Korey. And it's very bizarre behavior that only Trina and Charlie were the Islanders to say something to Olivia, and the rest, even if they had speculated something, or maybe if they didn't have the full story, they still didn't think it was good enough to tell Olivia. And that is not okay. That is not how you treat your quote unquote bestie. That's not how this works. That's not how you do things. So just very weird. And then the biggest takeaway from this is at some point prior to the breakup announcement, there was already a breakup of sorts between Olivia and Korey, which means at a particular point in time, they were lying to the fans whenever fans were asking about Korey and Olivia when things looked sus and looked like they weren't together. They, would reiterate on Instagram in the comments that everything was fine, that they were still together. They would do all these Instagram lives and, play like they were still together, but really they weren't, based off of the timeline. And, and then it just makes Florita and Korey look worse because Florita, as you'll remember, I did a video where, Florita was adamant in the comments that, nothing happened. And then that was when she, tried to deflect and blame Olivia and Charlie that he tried to kiss her or whatever, and tried to redirect the story and just basically say that she's not a cheater. She's not a homewrecker. However, if it's not cheating, why did most of the cast withhold this information from Olivia? Why did Korey wait until the 11th hour when it was already being discussed by other people to then finally fess up and say what happened? So it's just, I just hope that these world tour dates stop from the season 3 cast, because if they went so hard to cover this up, imagine what is worse that they're actually covering up from the fans, because they know certain fan bases, how strong and how vocal and how passionate certain fan bases are. If it exposed, how somebody really was in the cast that they're trying to keep under wraps, it could just be explosive. It could totally blow the whole lid off on this cast. And we totally could have been bamboozled, in terms of how certain people were edited on the show versus who they are in real life. And this is just incredible. It really is. And it's unfortunate too, because it's like, even if you don't like Olivia, even if she's not your favorite Islander, nobody deserves to, if everybody's really referring to you as their bestie and that they're good friends with you, why are they revealing something, that your quote unquote boyfriend or who you're exclusive with, did something inappropriate with somebody else in the cast? And why are so many people in the cast taking up Florita and defending her just because, they like her so much? Like, that's very weird. Because if I'm a female cast member, I would be sketched out by Florita. I would not want her a part of any other group trips, because she's already did this, with 2 men in the cast that affected, the females that they were involved with or about to, get back involved with. It's not okay. And I guess, also in the podcast, Olivia kept doubling down that she still loves Korey and, there could be a chance they might get back together and this and that. But no. You need to cut your ties with Korey, because Korey is only going to butter you up and try to play nice right now to save him and Florita's reputation. And to an extent, it's working, because the cast has really made it a point not to really discuss this. and not to banish Florita from anything. And in fact, the plan is for them to still go to party in Miami in January, I believe, is allegedly, quote unquote, the next tour date stop. So it just goes to show that people pick and choose who they want to hold accountable, and people pick and choose who they like. They're going to ignore certain red flags and ignore certain bad behavior in order to, keep things going with the group. And that's really messy. That's very high school. That's very immature. Everybody's adults. Everybody's in, their mid to late 20s. And I believe actually Olivia is the oldest. I want to say she's 30 or she's about to be 30. So there's no reason for her to be taking any of this crap from people, like at all. Because if you're really somebody's best friend, why are you keeping something like that a secret? Why is it okay for people to keep this a secret, but then try to reiterate, oh, it's not cheating. Oh, technically they weren't together, or technically they were exclusive, but they weren't together. Well, what does exclusive mean? Doesn't that mean you're committed to the person? And if you weren't together, why is the Florita and Korey secret hookup in Miami being kept a secret? Like, why is that happening? I just want to know at this point, like, when are we going to hold people accountable? And how fame hungry are some of these islanders that they are willing to keep up these fake relationships, these fake personas on Instagram and, whatever other social media areas that they're, promoting themselves, to sell basically a fake image to the fans. The fans would have still supported Korey and Olivia if they had been single this whole time. And I think that's what the other Islanders need to realize. Like, people are not obsessed with you only if you're in a relationship. We, of course, root for certain couples because we want everybody to work out on the show on Love Island. But we know, especially in the U.S. franchise, that a lot of the couples end up breaking up eventually. And that's okay. But we just want the transparency as a fan. We don't want to have to, suspect that you guys were broken up already, and the truth of the matter was you really were broken up, but you still wanted to keep up appearances. You still wanted to get 100,000 likes on your pictures together and keep up that fan engagement, and you didn't want to let that part of the 15 minutes of fame go, of the attention that it gets when you and somebody else are together. And so that's why there's so much, there's so many issues with a lot of reality stars now trying to keep up this false reality on social media to keep up fan engagement. But the problem is the truth eventually gets exposed, and it eventually gets to a point where you can't keep lying to people. And people start to piece together a different timeline of events, because that's exactly what happened with this Olivia podcast. I remember exactly, what Olivia said in her S'more Date interview just a few days prior. I remember exactly what Shannon was saying in her Instagram live, which is even more sketchy now because Shannon wanted to make Charlie look like the villain for exposing Florita and Korey when it's still wrong. Like, that's not cool. And it just goes to show that these Islanders in this season 3 cast, they're not as close as they're trying to make it seem. Because if you're really that close to Olivia, you would have told her the second you found something out about this. And it shouldn't have only been Charlie and Trina to speak to this. Korey and Florita should have fessed up the moment that it happened. So again, it's just another scandal. It's something else in the Love Island US that, they tried to cover it up. It got exposed. And Olivia's trying to downplay, what her status was with Korey. But Korey and Florita and some of the cast members felt guilty enough to not tell her. So that tells you right there that enough of them still thought, including Korey and Florita, that they were still something. Because if you're not together, why would you be upset, right? So again, I just wish moving forward, and this goes out to whoever is going to be on season 4 and future seasons, to just be transparent. If you broke up, right when the show ended, like Bailey confirmed what happened with her and Jeremy, just say that. But don't waste fans' time for the next 4 months getting invested and thinking that you guys are an actual couple and really you already broke up, but you just wanted to keep up appearances. Because that's very sketch. That's just very sketch, and it's dishonest behavior for the fan base, especially with how passionate the Love Island fan base is from the beginning. So yeah, and I get it. They want to keep fans interested, but a big part of the reason the fans are interested because they like who the individuals are. You don't have to be defined by staying in a couple with somebody just to get 100,000 likes on Instagram. You don't have to do that. Your likes may go down if you're single, but as long as you're staying true to yourself and true to your personality and true to the person that the fans fell in love with on the show, it shouldn't matter whether you're single or in a relationship with somebody. That shouldn't be, the qualifying factor on how you're going to move on social media. You should be confident in your own individual brand that you can withstand anything, whether you're single or not. So hopefully, if anybody else in the cast is, extending a fake relationship for fan engagement, I hope they would, just be upfront with what it is. So that way, because then the other issue too is you have several fans that start to get invested, that start to think that this is like a legit thing, because a lot of the US fans are also fans of the UK. So they have seen, a lot of what some of the successful couples can do, what it can lead to for them. So it's just, you just want people to be transparent and honest. And it just kind of, after listening to this podcast with Olivia, it kind of just leaves a bad taste in my mouth, because now it makes me question now how many more people are lying and how many more people in the past have lied that we didn't know about, that we assumed was a couple for the last 4 or 5 months, and really they had already broken up, but they didn't want to give up, the attention and the fan engagement that comes with posting pictures and videos of them pretending to still be a couple. So it's just something to keep in mind, and it makes me detach even further, because I was one of the passionate J-Lip fans last season and thought that they were legit, and then I got bamboozled when everything hit the fan with Caleb. So I'm definitely just not attached to anybody moving forward in the Love Island franchise, period, because you have to be realistic with your expectations with these people. You just have to. I just wish that the Islanders would understand that the fans would still support them if they just were honest. And that's all I want. Because the problem is they've done so many Instagram lives and they have done so many interviews now that you can kind of piece together different timelines, and you can kind of piece together when some of the Islanders have clearly been lying or have clearly not been as forthcoming as they should have been on what the actual truth was. So that's kind of where I'm at right now in terms of, just wanting the transparency and the honesty more than anything else. I don't care about these people's relationship status. I honestly don't. Like, for instance, I'm a fan of Justine, didn't care whether or not she was with Caleb, because I knew she was going to thrive either way. And so that's just how I feel. But yeah, that's just, to kind of close. That's what happened with, the latest update on the fallout of Olivia's podcast. I imagine at some point, if this gets enough traction, that some people might come out to try to clear their names or try to defend themselves. And it wouldn't surprise me if, we also hear from Korey or Florita at some point as well. It would not surprise me at all. So we'll definitely be staying tuned for that. But that's all I have. Please let me know your guys' thoughts. What you guys think of this whole ordeal with, this Olivia Korey Florita scandal. Korey in Florida trying to cover it up, other cast members knowing about this and not telling Olivia, and Olivia basically feeling like she was the last to know because she felt blindsided and lied to, and Korey not even being man enough to tell Olivia in person when they were in Atlantic City what went down. Like, it's just a lot there. So let me know your guys' thoughts. Do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I will talk to you guys again very soon.